In today's workshop, I have a good what do you call it, lesson here from Randy. So it's good a good lesson on kind of like it's a simple condition, but it's kind of like taking care of all the details so you get a clean signal out of it. So so let me use this chart to explain what we're trying to accomplish here. So the first condition is that we have a crossover, right? So we're just using some kind of moving average crossover, and then we're looking for two bars in a row pullback. Right, so in other words, we're looking for a crossover situation, and then we're looking for a pullback of a minimum of 2 bars before taking a trade. So, so as you can see, Randy wanted this done on the range bars, and I'm just using the NQ here. Obviously, this doesn't look good, so this is going to be more of a workshop in about theory than it is an actual practical trading system, or either that or Randy has more to it that he's using hopefully before trading this. But this does make a great lesson though. So all right, so you can see I already have the system built, but I'm going to build it again, and this time, I was kind of looking at it this morning just to get it fresh in my head, and I think I'm going to build it a little bit differently because, like I said, this is going to be kind of like a lesson showing you guys kind of how to clean up some of the details. So like this here. We just got the crossover, right? The crossover just happened, and it already fired off a short, right? So there was really no bars down after the crossover. There was really no movement down. So I would think, traditionally that you would not want to see that signal right there. I wish I kind of had a cross out symbol over here. That'd be nice. So I'll try and do as best I can. All right, so we really wouldn't want. Oops, wrong one. We really don't want to see this guy right here because there was really no movement. No movement in the direction of the crossover. Basically, as soon as we had the crossover, you can see we had 2 retracement bars, and then prices took off. So as you can see, my first attempt. I was trying to eliminate some of this stuff, but I guess when I first built it, I didn't see this kind of situation here. So we'll work on we'll build the simple condition. Looking for the crossover, and then looking for a two bar pullback, and then start filtering out, kind of all these kind of like garbage signals that we don't want. All right. So let me minimize this guy off to the side, and I'm going to use this chart here. So let me just get myself set up a little bit. So as we look at this chart, let's mark a few areas that we do want to see. All right, so we do want to see a signal on this bar, and let's see. Well, this has definitely been a pretty significant update I guess the markets don't care about Cyprus very much. They just want to keep going up. So I don't really have any good short conditions. So so that actually might be useful to our advantage. So I don't really see any kind of clear down movements on these cross downs that are occurring right here. So it looks like, at least for this morning, all we're going to see are long signals. And if we do get any short signals, we'll figure out how to filter those out. Yeah, even though we got a cross down, we don't have any clear down bars, down movements before we get a pullback. And yeah, same here. We have a cross down, but no clear directional movement. So yeah, so here's another thing. I've decided, these dojis like this to me are kind of indecisive. So I've decided to not include these as kind of like a pullback. I want to at least see some kind of body in the pullback bars. So this wouldn't count, but we should get a short on this bar here. All right, so we'll get back to that later. Yeah, okay, here we go. So here's our signal. There. All right, let me just set up my template name. And yeah, as you guys maybe remember from a few weeks back, I'm using a VMware to do these. So there we go. There's one that I can use, and all right. And today's the 22nd already. Man, March is flying by. But I like the new weather because I do like to get out and hit the green belt. Pretty soon it'll be time to pull up the bike and go ride in the river. All right, so there's our workshop with today's date. And let me open this up. So most of you are familiar with working with me. I like to kind of have my chart on one side and then the interface on another side, and I can just switch back and forth. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is, I don't need to use the crossover. I'm not actually going to use the crossover solver, even though that's what we're looking for visually. But really what we want is we just want one moving average above the other moving average. All right, so to build this condition, we need a continuous long output when the white moving average is above the red one. So I'm going to use the comparison solver. So I get a continuous long signal out, when the white moving average is above the red. So, all right. Alright, so let's start with the comparison solver. Get this guy set up. And so what I have on my chart, let's see, an EMA 55 and an SMA 10. So typically you want the short period moving average in the indicator A section. All right, and we'll go put the EMA in here. All right. So there's our base, basically our base condition set up. right? So this is like, you know, a base bare minimum condition setup here. So, all right, I see there's some comments or questions coming in. Let me just kind of check these out. And Randy's writing me some comments, and this is his question. So let me just check these out here. Okay, so Randy has kind of added to this. So he wants to see, which makes sense. So he wants to see a two-bar pullback, and then, or I should say at least a two, he's probably saying, let's see, yeah, so at least a 2-bar pullback, and then a bar in the correct direction. So really, this is where we want our long signal. So we have at least 2 bars, a pullback, and then at least 1 bar going back in the direction of the trade. So, all right. So that's what we're looking for. Yeah, let's scroll back here. And then, so here, this would be the bar on which we want the signal after getting a down bar here. All right. Okay, so next we want to look for the 2-bar pullback here. All right. Now, typically, you'd think, okay, let's use the bar direction. And typically, that's going to be an easy way to do this. All right, so we want at least 2 bars. And let me expand this out here. Right, so we can see we have a one down bar, and then on the second down bar we're getting our signal, and then also on the 3rd bar, right? So as long as you have 2 bars, each additional bar in the same direction, you know, as you can see, is being painted. Oh. Now you can see we're just using the solver setup in its default direction, its default configuration. But we want a long signal here. So, excuse me a minute. There. Just want to get some water. So we need to reverse we need to reverse the direction, you know, of the outputs. We want long outputs instead of this short output here. All right, so let's take a look at the solver, and you know, we might think, well, let's try and invert it. See what happens. And you know what? This is probably the one solver where you can actually invert and get the kind of the results you want. Typically, if you invert other solvers, you usually don't get the result that you want. But in this case, we do, and that's because we're looking for 2 or more bars in the same direction, right? So you can see that here we're getting both a you know, a long and a short, but it's only at 0.5. The output's only there at 0.5. So we only get a signal coming out, right, when we have 2 or more bars. So it looks like this is going to work for us. And then the next step is, in looking at this solver, is we need you know, for every solver that we have to put together, we need a long signal on the actual bar, right, on this actual bar. So we can see the bar direction solver stops one bar short. So we need to move that signal forward. And so we need a displacement of some sort. If you use that, there you go. So that is kind of our displacement for this solver. You can see how it just shifted it one bar forward. So we have a long signal on the bar we're looking for. And if we check out this other solver, our base, kind of our base condition, kind of like think of this as like our base trade direction. And we have along here, right, and along there. So next, let's just kind of join them together and see what happens. So interesting. Yeah, this guy actually does qualify. That is correct. We have our cross up, and we do have a long bar, then two pullbacks, and then a long direction. So this ended up being a nice bounce off of our moving average red line here. However, this short here, this short seems a little questionable. Well, we don't have the crossover yet. So I guess technically, I mean, we can see it in hindsight, but if we were watching it in real time, we may not have gotten, this did not cross until the next bar. That's kind of, so if you look at this, technically we haven't crossed yet, and we got a short signal. So technically this could be correct. And then we actually got the crossover. But once again, I know to me this is a doji. It is a shooting star. So if you're into candlesticks, that is supposed to be indicative of a short, kind of a short signal there. But I would like to see some actual body in this. So let's go ahead and kind of filter this guy out. We'll filter this doji out. All right, and we'll do that. We'll use another comparison solver. Or actually, let's just use another bar direction solver. So let's plug this guy in here. Yeah, and you can see there's no, right? There's no output on these dojis here, right? You can see all these dojis. There's no output because there's no body to the bar. So that should be there. Let me disconnect this guy again. So there's our short signal. So if we need some kind of a body in the bar, then use the bar direction. All right, filtered out. So I'm just kind of scanning through here to see if there's any other situations to filter out. Yeah, so here's another Here's something I didn't do in the first system I built, and that is, typically if your price crosses your moving average, typically, that's going to giving you a heads up that maybe the trend direction is going to change. Kind of a warning. So you may not want to take a long signal here if price crosses below, our slow moving average. So let's build that as a filter as well. So it's going to be very similar to this guy here. So let me name this properly, right? So SMA 10 and EMA 55. And this is a 2-bar pullback. And this guy's just the default bar direction, so we'll leave it alone. I'll leave that name as is. Okay, so now let's check when price is above or below our red moving average here. So let me drop down another comparison. All right, so we'll compare the closing price to our EMA 55. Take a look at it, and all right, looks good. So here's those longs. We'll throw in another filter there, and they're gone. All right, I will shrink up the chart here. We'll just kind of scan through these. And I must say, Randy, this is looking a lot better now, isn't it? This is pretty cool. Bunch of long signals and these nice long trend. And let's check out some of these short signals here. All right. Let me expand the chart back out. Look at this guy qualified just barely. Looks like price was just below the moving average. Got us a nice short there. Yeah, this guy got a few ticks out of it. So we did get a mark to short on this doji here, on that doji, and that's probably because let's take a look at this 2-bar direction, and so I want to take a look at the output. Okay, I'm going to change this guy up. I'm going to take out this start bars that go. And yeah, so you know what? That bar direction is counting this doji when we're looking for 2 bars in the same direction. Of course that's subjective to, to you guys, but let's just say that we don't want that. And so let's work on filtering this trade out. Let's say we don't like dojis because they're somewhat indecisive. Alright, so we want to filter this guy out here. So, alright, before I get started, let me take a look at the question board here. Alright, so alright, so Randy's adding to his comments. Randy's saying there's a lot more to my system, and the only issue I really had was to show only the first signal and block all others until there is another cross. So, all right, yeah, Randy, I have taken care of that. I just haven't gotten to it yet. All right, so I'll just kind of give you a sneak peek here. We'll get to that. So I'm using, on the one that I built, I'm using the signal blocker function node here. So we'll add that in. So we'll get to that. All right. And so Randy's making the comment. I guess Randy was making the comment about the bar direction solver here that I was surprised that inverting actually worked. You're right in that I usually have to use an inverter function node. Yeah. So I did make the comment that the bar direction solver is typically the only solver where using the inverter does actually kind of give you what you're wanting. So usually you're going to want to use this guy here to invert your signals. So, all right. Okay, and so I think I already took care of this. Now just filter for close in the proper direction. Yep. So we've done that. All right. So let's kind of build. So remember, these workshops really aren't about building tradable signals. They're about teaching you guys, kind of how to build your main, trade condition or your main signal, and then how to kind of filter out all these erroneous signals that you may not want. So I'm just going to, create a hypothetical, and we don't like dojis today, so we want to filter out this short here. Although I think in practicality, I think it's best to probably take the first pullback, because each consecutive pullback, the trend begins to weaken. But, for today's lesson, let's work on getting rid of this short here because it's got a doji. We're biased against dojis today. All right, so we can replace, the bar direction solver. What we can do is we can replace this and build our own bar direction solver by using the comparison solver. And essentially, really all the bar direction is doing is it's just comparing the open to the close. All right, pretty simple. And so that's why with the bar direction, all right, with the bar direction, when you have a doji, the bar and the close are the same, so that's why there is no comparison. They're both equal. So let's build a bar direction. All right. And so we're going to compare the open to the close. Let's see, actually, yeah. Normally you want what comes first in A and then what comes second in B, but if we look at the way the default outputs are set, so if A is greater than B, right, A being greater than B, so in an up bar, the close is greater than the open. So we want A greater than B, so we want the close greater than the open. So we're actually going to, I'm going to switch these around. So I want the close first, and I want to compare it to the open. So we're going to use Chameleon to give us the open. All right. And we want at least a 1 tick on the body size. All right, so our difference, we want at least a 1 tick difference. So I need to, and so there's a little trick, you know, sometimes programming languages don't update themselves. So we can see I put 1 tick in the large amount and our description didn't update. So if I just click on another solver and click back, there we go. Now we can see this is updated. So A greater than B by 1 tick. This is A greater than B by 0 ticks. Well, we don't want 0 ticks. We want at least 1 tick, so set that to 0. And once again, we have 0 ticks down here. So let's set that to 0. And take a look. All right, so you can see this looks just like the bar direction. So all these dojis here have no output, right? So, and you're probably, you know, my first thought when I saw these dojis stepping up was that, well, you know what, that's a doji, but obviously I can see prices stepping up. You know, so to me that might as well be as good as an up bar. So if we have time, we'll work on that. We'll work on this as well, looking for dojis that are stepping up like this. So. Okay, so we have so we have 1 bar direction built, and we need at least 2 in a row. So let's build another one. Now we don't have a copy function in the logic, so I'm going to jump over here, take this, copy it down, and so this solver is looking at the current bar, and now I need another solver to look 1 bar back. I need to look at the previous bar to make sure the previous bar was going in the same direction. So I'm going to use the displacement feature here to look back 1 bar. So I'm going to have to use Chameleon now so I can get this displacement feature. Alright, there's the the close. Alright, so I got the close up here, the open down here, and we want at least 1 tick. Okay, let's drop that guy in here. We'll take a look at it. So we can see we had a doji right here. Let's expand this a little bit. So we have a doji, but we can see the doji is actually showing up on the next bar forward, right? And then the next bar forward is a long for this up bar. Okay. Now remember, we had to invert our 2-bar direction. We had to invert it. All right, so I do need to invert these solvers here. So set that to 0. I'll set this to 1. Oops. 1. Set that to 1. Set that to 0. Okay. So effectively, I've used the output to invert the conditions we're looking for. So when the bar is pulling back, or when the bar is moving up, we're getting our shorts. So let me invert this other solver. All right. And then next, to look for 2 bars in a row, I need to AND these guys together. There we go. Let me name this. So we got a 2 bar. This is a pullback. 2-bar pullback. All right, and so we can see these bars that are moving down, we're getting a long condition continuously. All right. Let me shrink this up so we can we want to compare this bar direction to this kind of new mini system that we built, and it should look the same with the exception that this short should not show up anymore. Right? So with the bar direction, that short does show up, and with this, it does not show up. So, and you'll probably notice that there's a whole bunch of signals that are not showing up here either, and that's because of look at all these dojis. So if we look at this bar direction over here, yeah, see, so we're getting all of these signals, all these painted signals here, and which there's dojis mixed in between all these. And now if I use what we just built, it's all gone. So that kind of cleaned that up. All right. So we want to disconnect this guy. And oops. And I killed all the signals. Okay. Let's see what's going on here. So oh, yeah. So remember with this guy, we had used the start bars ago, which kind of took the whole, the whole 2-bar in the same direction condition, and extended it forward 1 bar. All right, because remember, we're looking for, let's just kind of put this guy back together. All right, so we're actually looking for the signal. After the pullback, we need a bar in the same direction. And of course, this, if we look at this again, we have our pullback marked. So we got our 2-bar pullback, and we have a long here, but we need a long on the bar that actually goes long, that goes in the direction of the trade, the direction of the trend. Right, so we need another long signal here. So we need to extend this condition forward 1 bar. So let's use one of these function nodes. And let's see, I can use the look back. I could use the look back or the signal extender. So if I use the look back, put that in there. And what I'll do is, actually I see this look back has a displacement feature now. So now you can displace anything. Right, so it's doing the same thing as okay, remember these comparisons here. I was using the displacement by 1 so I can look back 1 bar. So now I can essentially displace anything. So let's set that to 2, and you can see it shifted it forward. All right. So if I set it back to 1, now what if I set this to 2? And oops. There we go. So we need to put this on max. And you can see what it does is it gives us two signals here, which would probably work. Yeah, but I think it's just cleaner just to use this displacement like this and just shift it forward. Oh. Actually, I think I was looking in the wrong spot because this has a doji here. And yes, we want to look here. There we go. Let's take a look at it. So without the look back, right? So we have a long signal in the second pullback, but we need to move it forward onto the next bar, in case the next bar closes up in the correct direction. All right, and there we go. And you can see the same thing's happening here. So we got 2 up bars and then a down bar, and we got our short signal. So that's a little more what we want. Okay, so let's plug this all back together. I'm going to disconnect that guy. Put this back in there, and there we go. Okay, let's take a look at everything else. So this long signal looks a little wishy-washy. I think it looks like we actually got a cross down here. So let me let me take a look at our comparison solver here. And yeah, so it crossed down and then it crossed back up. You know, so I don't think we want a long signal immediately after crossing up, right? Because we need a two bar pullback when our moving averages are crossed in the correct direction. So we got a 2-bar pullback, but the moving average had crossed in the wrong direction. Right, so our moving average should crossed in the down condition, or in the short condition. Okay, so we found another exception here that we need to filter out. All right, so what we're going to have to do is so let me use this as an example. So we got our cross up, and we at least need, let's just say we want at least 1 bar in the up direction, and then we can get our 2-bar pullback, and then a 4th bar going long again. So that's going to take 4 bars after the crossover condition. So we could take this guy and let's see, what's a good clean way to do this. So we could take this guy. My first thought is, well, I can just build a bunch of displacement solvers. I could take this, copy it 4 times, and use a bunch of displacements. Or there's got to be a cleaner way to do this. So let me take a look at yeah, I'm thinking the look back function node. So let me play around with this guy for a little bit, see what we get. So first I do kind of like to mark the original condition, so that way when I'm messing with stuff I kind of know how they line up. And let me tell you, this toolbar really comes in handy. And that is yeah, I believe that will do what I wanted to do. Yeah, I kind of like this mode better. So if you look down here in the output, basically give it more of a digital type look, whereas the average rate gives us the fuzzy logic look. And depending on how many I needed to look back, say I wanted to require 5 bars. You can see that this bar here gets awful close to our threshold level and might accidentally trigger a signal a little too soon. So I'm gonna opt. So I only want, I need 4 bars. So I'm gonna opt for this. Yeah, I'm gonna opt for this kind of output style here. All right. Now you can see that essentially both of these are going to need to get plugged into the end node, because this base condition here needs to be a requirement, but then we also need this this function node to be a requirement as well. Actually, maybe not. Yeah, maybe I can just disconnect this guy and just plug this into the end node. Yeah, I think that'll work for us. All right, it did get rid of that signal here. Yeah, let's see it. It got rid of this, yeah, this long signal that we had here. Clean that up. All right, and so we got a long signal here, and that looks like it qualified. And we got another long signal. We're still above the red moving average. I think that qualified okay. And that's good. There's no signals in here with all this chop and a bunch of christening crossing going on. Let's see. All right, so we got a pullback. Oh, the problem is, look at that doji. That doji killed it. So, maybe we don't want to eliminate these dojis. That might end up eliminating more good signals than bad signals, but just remember this is just for learning purposes. So this bar direction solver might be our best choice, but all right, we got a 2-bar pullback, and then a nice bounce off the moving average, and a bar going long. That looks good. This looks good. This guy looks good. Good. There's no signals in here, and 2 bars, and a move in the right direction looks good. And yeah, unfortunately we got a couple of dojis in here, so it took that out. Took these out. So it looks like we might want to leave the dojis in there, but at least we know how to eliminate them now. Yeah, this looks nice. 2-bar pullback. So we didn't get a short. Yeah, so it's moving. Oh wait, that's a cross up. So this cross down didn't have enough bars in it. So that's good. No signals in there. So we did eliminate this guy that has the doji in it. All right, a 3-bar pullback, and then bar in our correct direction. And we could filter this out. This to me, if I was probably trading this live, would make me kind of nervous. I'd be kind of wondering, well, gee, is price gonna, did price punch through my long-term moving average? Did it punch through and then it's coming back and it's gonna stopped right on it for a bounce to keep moving up? I'd be kind of nervous, so I probably wouldn't want to take this guy short. And so if we wanted to filter this out as well, instead of just comparing the close, we can compare the high and the low of the bar to make sure. So in the short condition, we'd want to make sure that the high is not above the moving average, and then at the same time back here for this long, we'd want to make sure that the short did not end up below the red moving average. Actually, let's see if there was a long. Well, no, I think this guy qualified just fine. Yep, the short. I mean, the low is just above that moving average, so that wouldn't get filtered out. But let's work on. Let's see. Yeah, I got time. So let's work on filtering this short out. So we're gonna make sure that the high of the bar did not break above our slow moving average for a short, and for long signals we want to make sure that the low did not punch below the red moving average. So once again, it's another simple comparison. So we're going to compare the high to the moving average and the low to the moving average. All right, so let's take a look at this. So as long as the high of the bar is below the red moving average, we're good for a short. And then as long as the low of the bar is above the red moving average, we're good for a long. All right, so we're going to compare the high and the low. Let's take a look at Chameleon here. All right, so we're going to use the high for shorts and we're going to use the low for longs. All right, so we're making sure that the high is not above the red moving average to validate our short signals. So, all right, and then indicator B section needs to be our red moving average, the EMA 55. And yeah, we just want to make sure that it's just above or below. So we'll accept 0 ticks here, just fine. All right, let's take a look. So it's good. Our high is below. So our high of all these bars is below, and we got shorts. And our low of the bar didn't break above the moving average, so there's no longs yet. And then we can start getting some longs here. So, all right. So this looks good. You know, in a way, this kind of looks like a nice, simple trend direction kind of filter. All right, so we get a bunch of several bars here that just have no long or short direction to them, and you can see the bars just kind of, you know, stuck in the middle of our moving average. So just kind of in a indecisive location. And then as soon as price moves above our red moving average, right, then it just tells us we're kind of in a long situation or a short situation down here. All right, so I think this guy's working good enough. All right, I'm just going to clean up some of these leaders here, and Plug that in there. Plug that in. Let me name this solver here. Let's see. So it's the high and low to the EMA 55. Okay, so what were we, all right, so back to this guy. So this is the guy we were trying to filter out. There we go. Filtered it out. No. All right, just look through a few of these, and I think we'll call it a day here. Let me take a look through some of the questions here. Oh, yeah. Let me add this one last condition on here. So Randy only wants to see one signal per crossover. So let's let me shrink up the chart. So he only wants to see the first pullback that meets his requirements. So we don't want to see this one here. All right, so we want to eliminate this one right there. So we're going to use the signal blocker. All right. Now, as you can see, the default settings of the signal blocker, it's only set to block, five bars after we have a signal. So clearly the second one is still, it still shows up. And so, I could put something high in here like 50 bars, right? And it's still not blocking it. Let's see, is that really 50 bars afterwards? Doesn't look like it, but I wonder if it is. Oh, well, yeah, typically, if you're gonna, when you're starting to use these function nodes, right, there's a couple of them that have all of these reset options, and I kind of like to start with them in a false condition. All right, so one of those resets will reset it and allowed the second long signal to occur, and it was probably this input no signal. That's probably why. So turning that, all right, so if I turn that on, yeah, see, turning this guy on, and we have this secondary long signal. So we want this off. Oops. Turn it off. There we go. And so now, right now, this signal blocker just works on a straight counting 50 bars and blocks all signals for 50 bars. So I guess luckily this long was outside the 50 bar range, but what if I put something ridiculous like 500 in there. And it's going to take NinjaTrader a moment to figure that out. All right, so look, now it's blocking everything, you know. So, you know, you definitely need to have a number in here that, you know, can block all of these secondary signals, but it's going to block some good signals too. So let me just, you know, put like something a little more reasonable, probably 100 bars. You know, 100 bars sound reasonable, but it's amazing. Never underestimate a good trend. Right? So I put 100 bars. It's definitely going to eliminate any secondary signals on a good long trend, but it also eliminated this. So I do need to have some kind of a reset feature here that, you know, will reset the signal blocker and allow this long in. Right? We do want to allow that long. So we have this long and that long. So what we can use is essentially when we have a crossover condition, so as soon as our white moving averages, you know, crosses below the red one, to me that sounds like a valid kind of reset type of situation. So now I will actually need a crossover solver. And it'll be our SMA 10 to EMA 55. So let me put those indicators in there. There we go. Oops. 55. So if we take a look at this solver, so now we'll see, so every time we get a signal, so we're going to use these crossover signals to reset the signal blocker. So when we get this long cross up signal, it'll reset our signal blocker and allow the next long signal to occur. So so we'll plug that into the reset. Put the result node over here. So on the reset node, I need to look for the first word I need to look for is the reset. And then the signal, so I have a reset signal, reset no signal. So I want to reset on a signal. So it's either going to be this guy or I can reset on the opposite signal, but I know it's not going to be a short, right? So a long cross-up signal is what's going to reset for a long signal. So I want to use the reset signal. Set that to true. And there we go. So this long is now this long got blocked, and this next long here went through. I'm gonna, since I have the chart so narrow, I'm gonna change my colors so they show up a little better for you guys. There we go. So these greens show up a little better. All right. So that's the final condition that Randy wanted to see. All right. Okay. So there, now we kind of completed it. So let me take a look through these questions here. Okay, so Joseph is asking, what's the difference between look back and displacement? Yeah, good question. You could look on NinjaTrader's help documentation. If you just click on the chart, hit F1, you could look here. I bet you if we do look back, I wonder if they have some documentation. So it's kind of it's a programming term. So their highest bar function here, right? So returns the number of bars ago. Well, so for this function here of highest bars, it's occurred during the look back period. So the look back is essentially what that's doing is if this is, let me put the chart on real time. So this is the current bar right here, right? And so a look back is essentially you're looking back in history for something to have occurred. And so with this help documentation, this function here looks for the highest bar during the look back period. So if we're looking for the highest bar, back 20 bars, well, if we're looking for the highest bar, we have to tell the program how many bars back to look. Does it look forever through the whole chart, or do we give it some kind of a limitation? And so this look back creates a limitation as to how much data we look through. So if we say 10 bar look back, then that's probably something like this. All right, so our highest bar in the look back period, is right here. If we said, well, 20 bars, well, then our highest bar probably goes back to here, 20 bars. So it's how many bars do you look back for a condition? And now displacement, you guys should be familiar with displacement because it's on every single indicator. So every indicator has this displacement feature. So if I displace this indicator, so my moving average, right, which is my white line, if I displace it by 5 bars, and if I hit apply, see how it displaced it forward by 5 bars? So it shifted the values of the SMA forward by 5 bars. Right, so there's a subtle technical difference between look back and displacement. All right, so you can also, oops. All right, so when I search for displacement in here, you can see I have the section here, working with indicators, right? Because displacement is used for working with indicators. So in this section somewhere, it'll probably talk about this displacement feature right here. So, all right, Joseph. So let's see, Daniel. Where do you get the toolbar from? From Big Mike's, Daniel. Pretty much everything you'll see on my charts was most likely gathered from Big Mike's or possibly from NinjaTrader's download section. So one or the other is most likely where my stuff came from. So Randy's, I guess, making a clarification here. Leave the bars straddling, but have it close at least one tick beyond the long moving average. Okay. Well, Randy, I think, Randy, I think you probably know how to do that. So I think, let's see. Let me open this back up. Let me kind of scroll back. So we're back to this guy here. We're back to this short that we eliminated. So I think what Randy's saying is that, these straddling bars are okay, but we want to close at least one tick, below the moving average for it to be acceptable. So if we wanted at least a one tick close below, let's see what. Let's disconnect this. And I need to bypass the signal blocker. All right. So there it's showing up again. And let's see. Oh, let me give this a name here. Let me name this. So it is the all right, so it's the close to the EMA. So if we need, let me read Randy's. So Randy wants, so have it close at least one tick beyond the long MA. All right. So I think what Randy's saying is we want the close at least one tick beyond our red moving average. So if we want that kind of a requirement, so let's take a look. So this, all right, this solver here is looking to see if the closing price, right, is above or below the moving average. So we need to set this one up so that the closing price is at least one tick above or below. And since this is a comparison, that's what this difference value is for. So we can put one tick in there. And it's not wanting to update the display. So let me just click on another solver. There we go. So now we have, right, A is the closing price greater than B, the EMA 55 by one tick. And that's what we want. So we want this to be set to 0. So we don't want an output when it's greater than, when A is greater than B by 0 ticks. We want at least one tick. Okay, so yeah. So we can see now when the closing price is really close to the moving average, right, there's no output or very little output. So that kind of sets up our one tick distance between the moving average, the red line, and the closing price. So now let's take a look at it. All right, so that was another way to filter this short out. All right, so I hope that took care of that, Randy. Yeah. So Randy was saying this straddling comment was entered a long time ago, but yeah, I kind of figured that, Randy. So, but you know, showing the one tick price difference, you know, the one tick offset to our moving average, I thought was a good, quick lesson there. All right, so let me keep on moving. All right, perfect. All right, so Randy's hoping the rest of you guys got something out of this lesson. I'm sure you did, at least something. All right, so Hans, another question. What would be the best way to define whether or not a second or third signal in the same direction will cause a second or third order? Let's see, what would be the best way to define whether or not a second or third signal in the same direction will cause a second or third order? Well, so Hans, that's more of a NinjaTrader question because NinjaTrader, right, is what actually fires off your trade orders in your strategy. So let's see. I need to turn my data feed on in order to pull up a strategy. So that is a setting in the strategy feature. All right, so let's look at yeah, so right here, yep, so we can see we got a long condition here because our white moving average crossed above, so we got a long, and we got, you know, 4 long signals within this situation. So let me pull up the strategies. So if you did put this into Raven, this is a NinjaTrader feature. So I would highly recommend that you go to NinjaTrader's. You know, since you're asking questions about how to set up a strategy, I really suggest you go watch some of NinjaTrader's training courses on how all of these settings work within their strategy for their their strategy settings, I should say, right? Because these are all NinjaTrader strategy settings. So I always prefer to defer kind of in-depth answers to NinjaTrader because they're obviously the experts on their software. So they're the ones who are best to give you the training on that, and they do post up their workshop videos up on YouTube. So you can go through, and I'm sure you'll find several workshops on how to use the strategy interface, right? So I'm here to show you guys how to use BloodHound, and I'm not really. See, I could really eat up all my time showing you guys just how to operate NinjaTrader, but NinjaTrader has excellent support, and so I like answering kind of the short questions, but when it kind of comes into detail about something like this, I prefer to defer you guys to NinjaTrader. So, but it would be entries per direction. Let's see, yeah. I think this is the feature that would decide that for you, Hans. So, all right. So to get an in-depth explanation of this, go watch one of the NinjaTrader strategy workshops. All right. Let's see, Randy. Okay. Okay, Randy. All right. You're welcome, Hans. And all right. Well, cool. Looks like that wraps it up. Perfect timing, just after 12 o'clock my time. So, all right, guys. You know, as Jeremy kind of said, this Friday is basically for customers. You know, so we're going to stick with kind of well, any kind of customers. So even when new customers come in and have some basic questions, we're here to answer those. But at least it kind of we're able to eliminate the introduction that we used to do a lot, showing new guys how to get help and where to go on our web page for all that stuff. So now I can dedicate more time towards the training, and you know, I do hope you guys can keep submitting you know, conditions like these that I can keep showing. So I would rather show you guys things, you know, setups, conditions that you're actually, you know, wanting to experiment with or using. I do like showing you guys something kind of more realistic instead of hypothetical stuff. So, you know, keep your questions coming in, and I'd love to show them. So that's what I like to see on this workshop. So, all right. Until then, I'll see you guys next Friday.